Hello everyone, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian. I am your IELTS teacher for today's live stream. Just gonna wait for a couple people to join in. Hi Khadija, how are you? Just want to do a quick audio and video check as we get going here. For those of you who are joining right now, can you see me okay? Can you see the board behind me especially? And can you hear me okay? If you can throw up a couple of yeses, then I know all is good and we can get going with the lesson. Awesome. Good. Sounds like we're all clear. Fantastic. So, again, my name is Adrian and I'm broadcasting to you live from beautiful Budapest, Hungary, Central Europe, where we're setting up offices in the course of this year. Of course, today is April 28th, 2018, and we are going to look at a Task 1 for the academic IELTS and a Task 2. Task 2 is kind of the same for general and for academic, so even if you're here for general IELTS, make sure to stay tuned for that Task 2 example. The materials are coming from our websites at gieltshelp.com. That's for general IELTS. Please make sure to join us there, visit us there. You can try our course for free, and if you like it, you can join our full course with all of our materials. That includes about 80 videos at this point. We're adding new videos all the time. There's a fully interactive course, 6 full practice exams, and tons of audio for all the different sections of the exam, as well as audio for speaking and for reading sections. If you're studying for the academic IELTS, please visit us at aehelp.com. Today's material is coming from our test book 1, Test 1, Task 1, and Task 2. So we are going to get right into it nice and fast here today so that we can cover this material. Of course, as you know, you have 1 hour for the writing section in the IELTS exam. It's made up of the 2 parts. Task 1 you should do in about 20 minutes. It's worth 1/3 of your writing mark. And Task 2 is worth about 2/3 of your writing mark. So you should spend about 40 minutes on that task. All right, so let's have a peek at today's Task 1 question. So here it is, our Task 1 question. It's a table. I know the lines for the table are probably not too visible because they're black, but I'm pretty sure you can figure out what that table looks like just by the data that you see in there. So let's have a look at this. Okay, so first step, when you get to the writing section, stay calm, of course. Don't panic. Doesn't matter if you see a table, a line graph, or 2 line graphs, or 3 pie charts. Just stay calm. It should all make sense, especially when you practice at home. This is a table type question, and the question reads as this. You should spend about 20 minutes on this task. The chart below shows the sales at a cafe, which is located next to a very large high school. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Okay, what is your first step? So for those of you who follow these classes regularly, especially those of you who are using our courses on our websites, you should know what your first step is. Can anybody tell me what your first step is? Malad, we have lots of examples for pie charts on our YouTube channel as well, so those should help you. For those of you who haven't subscribed to our channel, do that, and you can follow with all these great videos. Safa says, identify the type of graph that you're looking for. And Safa, you're right. The number one mistake that we see students make with these kinds of Task 1 questions is they write for line graphs. I think most students who are studying IELTS, when they're studying Task 1 for the academic, they're studying how to write for line graphs, like quickly increasing and decreasing and so on. And you have to be very careful because that kind of language doesn't work for bar charts or pie charts necessarily. So you have to be careful with the language and the vocabulary that you use. Again, IELTS is a thinking test. It's a test of your aptitude as well. So if you write about a pie chart the same way as you write about a line graph, you won't get a very good score because increase and decrease doesn't make sense. So here we have a table. So then, of course, you should remember what tables are used for. So what kind of information or what kind of reporting can we understand by looking at a table? So when you look at a table, what are tables used for in presentations? What kind of reporting? Okay, so I'll help you out a little bit here. I'll start you off. So tables are used to compare what? Can anybody continue this for me? What are tables used for? Used to compare data. What kind of data? And remember, we often use tables to create a graph, right? So for those of you who have used Microsoft Excel in the past, you know that when you want to create a pie chart or a bar graph or a line graph, your first step is to create a table in Excel, and then you convert that into a line chart or into a bar graph. So yeah, it's not necessarily numeric data, Safa. In this case, it is sales data. And that can be different types of what? It's not necessarily over time, Ayman, but it could be. And it could be profit. To keep it more general, what you're thinking of is that tables are used to compare data, two variables, which are divided into its parts based on rows and columns. Okay, so tables are used to compare data, two variables, which are divided into its parts based on rows and columns. Okay, that's what tables are generally used for. In this case, we see that it's the sales period from April to August. So the row here, what kind of data is the column, I should start with. What kind of data is the column showing us in our case? Anybody? What kind of data is shown in our situation in the columns? Yeah, the months, absolutely. So it's giving us these 5 months, April, May, June, July, and August. Okay, and what kind of data is shown for us in the rows? So these are the rows. What kind of data is shown by the rows? Not foods, Rachid. Foods would not be a good word to focus in on. Yeah, there you go, Karen. It's the meals of the day, right? So in our case, the example is showing months, and there's 5 of them, times meals of the day. Okay, and in our example, what is the actual individual cell showing? Okay, so what are these numbers showing us? Anybody? What are these sales? Okay, it's not necessarily the cost. You have to be careful. It could be just units of the meal, right? It doesn't actually show us the dollar sign here. We might assume that it's dollars, but it's not giving us the dollar sign. But however, we don't know what breakfast is. We can't think that it's eggs. So we can infer that it in fact is showing us dollar figures. So these must be dollar figures because it wouldn't make sense to be able to break lunch into drinks versus sandwiches and so on. So this isn't the number of meals. This is actually the dollars. It would just make the table look kind of strange to put dollars everywhere. So we can assume that this is in fact showing us the dollar totals, so the earnings. Absolutely. It's a nice way to put it, Mukul. So the cells equal earnings in dollars. Okay? So you can just infer that information. Great. Okay, so we figured that out. So we figured out its table. We know that for tables, we need to make comparisons and contrasts, okay? That is definitely the key to getting a high score for this, right? So you need to comparisons and contrasts. You need to make comparisons and contrasts, similarities and differences between that. All right, now, we can begin writing. Of course, definitely make sure that you do pay attention to the question. It says it's a cafe which is located next to a very large high school. Okay, so we're going to summarize this information. All right, before we start writing, what's our next step? What is our next step before we start writing our overview? If you're unsure about the question, Saneem, absolutely you can paraphrase the question, okay, to make sure that you understand it clearly. But the first thing you want to do is you want to find some key features. Rachid, there is no peak here because it's a table. Generally for tables, we don't talk about it like a line graph, as I mentioned before, so you're not looking at the peaks or anything like that. What you need to do is you need to identify your main points of comparison, okay? So you need to figure out a structure to your writing, to your analysis, and you want to take a minute from your 20 minutes and look at the main points of comparison. So a good way to start, of course, is to look at the highest sales in all of this data. And the highest sales, anybody, can you tell me where the highest sales are? Where are the highest sales in our question here? This is not a pie chart, Milad. This is a table. If you start writing about a pie chart, your mark's going to go boom, crash and burn. Okay, you're saying lunch in April, and that looks to be right with 28,050, so just over $28,000 earned, right? So that is definitely our point one. What is our point number two? What should be our point number two? What is a logical choice for our second point when we're writing this task one with this table? That's right, Farouk. Not the least sale, but the lowest sale. And which one is that? What is our lowest sale here? I can see that pretty quick. I hope you can too. It is August. Yeah. So that is our point number two. Okay, now, when you're looking at a table, you can do something very interesting. If you are looking to score a band 9, so you're looking for that really high IELTS score, what do you think would be a very clever next step here when I'm looking to identify some interesting points of comparison? So I looked at the highest sale period and the food, and I looked at the lowest one. What is another really good kind of step to take here before I start writing with this table? There's a very nice trick for you to remember for your IELTS if you get a table for your question. No, I'm still looking for that clever critical thinker who figures out. Yeah, Safa, very good. Safa, did you get that from our full course? From studying our full course? Just out of curiosity, or did you know that beforehand? Because you are absolutely right. You want to do a quick totaling. Okay, you got it from the course. Great. And it's very good, Safa. It's very good. You're learning the right steps. Okay, so what you want to do here is you want to do a quick tally. Okay, is another way to say totaling. You want to do some simple math, a quick tally of these. Now, all you want to do is round up and down and add up the numbers. So you don't have to have an exact number. you just want to round. So 21,250 becomes 21,000. 22,130 becomes 22,000. 17,890 becomes 18,000. This becomes 11,000. This becomes 11,000. So if I want to do that very quick and easy, all I have to do is say 21 plus 22 is 43. 43 plus 18 is 61. 61 plus 22 is 83. So this is roughly 83,000, okay? And then I keep going with these other ones. So 28 plus 28 is 56. 56 plus 24 is 80. 80 plus, let's say, 18 is 90, 104, 104, I'll round this one up because I rounded that one down. 104 plus 20 is 124, just for simplicity's sake. Now, it doesn't have to be exact, so if you say 123 or if you say 125, that's okay. Just a rough estimate is fine, okay? And then here, 15 plus 15, now I can see that these are almost half, so I can just add that to 31. And then 31 plus 16 is 47. 47 plus 16 is 57, 64. 64 plus 16 is 70, okay? So I get 70 there, and then I do the same things for the columns. So I add up the columns, and this becomes 21 plus 28 is 49. While I do this, if you guys want to help me out, can you guys try to do these columns while I add up this one, and then I'll ask you for the answers so I don't have to do all the math, and that way you're doing a little bit of thinking as well. So I'll add up April, you guys add up May, June, July, and August, and then I'll ask you for those totals. So my total here is okay, anybody get the total for May? 52, thank you. Okay, anybody get the total for June? Somebody said May is 65. Okay, let's make a correction there. 65. Okay, anybody get the total for June? No, it doesn't take a lot, Karen. It should only take you about 3 minutes, but it'll definitely make your life a lot easier when you write. You'll catch up that time in your writing. Yeah, that's what you're thinking too, TQ, but if you take 2 or 3 minutes even to calculate this, you'll notice they won't let you take a calculator with you, and oftentimes it will be even easier numbers than this, right? No, even the 2-3 minutes that it might take you to calculate this will be worth it when you start writing. So June is, it's not 33, guys, it's 3 numbers here, so I can see that 18 plus 24 is 42, 42 plus 15 is 57, right? And then July, anybody get that one? Yeah, you'll see why, Kira. You'll see why in a moment, why it's very, very applicable, okay? And then you'll see that it's 46,000 for July. Okay, let's take that one. So 46. Okay, so I hope some of you write that down because I don't know if I'll have that up the whole time. But anyway, so we have that. Okay, now that we added all of these up and we added all of these up, what kind of interesting information did we learn that becomes very valuable for us to write some really good sentences quickly? Because if you write the whole task 1, just about each of these little numbers, it's probably not going to be a very efficient essay. But now that I have these totals, I can write some much more clever sentences. What kind of sentence am I thinking about? So what can I do now with my task 1 that's going to make it look a lot better and push my score high up into 7, 8, 9, especially if I'm using some good grammar and vocabulary? What can I say? Well, I can say that I can figure out the highest and lowest months, right? So here I can figure out that the highest sales comes from lunch. Look at lunch. It's 124,000, quite a bit more than 70,000 and 80,000, right? And I can say that the highest month for sales is 65,000. Now, obviously, April is close, but we can see that June and July are quite a bit less, right? So we can actually compare these totals instead of comparing these little numbers in here. That's less significant, okay? Now, of course, if you are good at math, and you can do some fairly simple addition, you don't even have to get these exact numbers. You can just look at it and you can see that here you have 28, 27, 24. So you can see that lunch has the highest sales. Okay? So you might, if you think, hey, I'm going to waste a lot of time if I figure out all of these numbers, then you might just say, look, I can see that this is the highest here, and I can see that this is probably the highest here, okay? But you can now make some really good comparisons. So let's jump back. Let's add together August. We forgot about that. That adds up to 30 and 15, 16, it's 46. It's also 46. Okay, so now we can jump back to the writing element here. And as you know, the first part of task 1 is the overview, okay? So I'm going to have to delete my annotations here, otherwise you won't be able to see. So it's the overview, okay? And in the overview here, I want to keep it very, very simple, okay? So looking at the table, just report the highest and the lowest sale cell, or you can go for the highest and the lowest sale months if you want, and report what you're looking at, the rows and the columns, right? And of course, do some paraphrasing. So here we can say something like, this table depicts the earnings of a cafe near a school for 5 months and 3 meals of the day as indicated by the columns and rows respectively. At first glance, it is clear that the highest sales are for, and here we're going to have to go past tense because it's August 2010, so we'll change that in a second, are for lunch at roughly 28,000, right? In April. At first glance, it is clear that the highest sales are for lunch in April at about 28,000. And you can do it like this. Or you can even do it like this if you want to keep it really simple. I don't recommend wasting too many words on numbers, okay? Conversely, make sure that you use these kinds of joining words. The lowest sales are, let's have a look at that table again, for breakfast in August, just under 11K. Okay, and that's probably enough right there for your overview, all right? Now you can go down for the, further down for the analysis. So now we're looking at that analysis, okay? And for our analysis, we can now use that information more wisely. So remember that lunch has the highest sales, right? So that can be our next point. We've talked about our highest and our lowest, so This can be our next point, which is lunch. These 2 months are the most successful. They're close to 65,000, both of them. So we can talk about that. We can contrast lunch with the lowest sales. The lowest sales overall, interestingly, was for dinner, right? So this is the second part of point 3. And then we can contrast this with the lowest months, which are here, right? So that can be our other point number 4. Is everybody following along with me so far? So are you clear on what I'm doing here to build a very structured and efficient expository third-person essay for this task 1? Okay, and notice that now my math that I did, my quick math, is not a waste of time. It's actually very beneficial for me because I'm able to write much better information and very quickly, okay? And I can actually start off my analysis by saying, so remember this vocabulary, okay? When you're doing this, please remember the vocabulary that I'm using here. By doing some simple addition, it becomes evident that the highest grossing meal for this cafe is lunch. After summing the row, the total sales are roughly 125,000. Going forward with this arithmetic, summing the, what was it? It was the dinner, right? Summing the other 2 rows reveals that dinner is the lowest revenue with about 70,000 earned. Now, yes, I'm making this look fairly simple, but of course, if you practice this at home, you will be able to do it with a similar level of speed, and yet indeed you have to learn some of these vocabulary like summing, adding up, knowing this kind of vocabulary. Okay. Now we can go to the columns, which we talked about here. So we summed up the columns. So after adding up all the columns, the table shows that, and I'll let you continue on here. So can anybody continue on here? If you're referring, Maria, directly to the data in the graph, you can use present tense. But if you're referring to what the sales were in the cafe in 2010, then clearly you have to use past tense. So that's a good question of tense, right? Yeah, you can write numbers in the overview, TQ, absolutely. So let's continue on here. Can somebody finish this for me? And I do read your comments, TQ, as the flow of the lesson allows me to. Don't worry about it. Just keep asking those questions. So can somebody continue this sentence for me? After adding up all the columns, the tables show that. Anybody? What would be a good way to continue that sentence? Give you a chance here. Yep, the highest sales, and then keep going, Chandani. What comes after that? Again, my goal here, girls and guys, is to teach you how to fish, not just give you a fish. If you're learning IELTS where teachers and books keep giving you fish, it will be very difficult to get a high band score on IELTS because IELTS demands you to be a fisherman or a fisherwoman and not to hold your hand out for fish. If you're holding your hand out for fish, you can get a 5, a 5.5, but it will be very difficult to get 6.5 and extremely difficult to get 7 or higher. As soon as I'm finished task 1, Hadil, I will begin task 2. Probably in about 10-15 minutes tops, I'm guessing. Remember when we added up the columns, which months had the highest? Anybody remember? I'll give you the graph again. So have a look at this. When you add up these columns, and you can visually do this, so you can visually kind of add these up very quickly. I mean, even if you're just looking at the numbers that are in their 20s, right? Then you can figure out which of these months has the highest sales. April has the highest sale. How about May? Does May have I think we calculated that May might have the highest sale. Yeah, there you go, Lytton. So that's using your critical thinking. Remember when we added these up, this one was 65,000, or this one was 65,000, this one was 64,000. That's very, very close. It's only a difference of 1,000. So obviously these 2 months are similarly very high. If this were a bar graph, so if I took this information and put it into an Excel program and asked it to give me a bar graph, these 2 bars would be very, very close to each other, okay? Now, which one is the lowest? Which one has the lowest sales? And again, if I look at this at an eye shot, I can see that this is 11, this is roughly 11, this is roughly 18 or 19, this is 19, this is roughly 16, this is roughly 16. So I don't have to be a math wizard here, girls and guys, and I don't need to get out my pencil and paper and do exact additions. I can see that these 2 months adding the columns are my lowest, these 2 are the highest. So now that that's clear, again, let me ask you the question. How can I continue this sentence? After adding up all the columns, the tables show that. Please continue this sentence for me. The highest sales at the cafe are in April and May, and the lowest sales are in July and August. Very good, Rashmita. Good for you for taking that leap of faith and just throwing something out there. Absolutely. And if you did do your math, then you can throw a number in there like Farouk is doing, saying 65,000. The highest sales in the month of April and May, both close to 65,000. Okay? So absolutely. And there you can use a similarity because it's not just contrast, but you're also looking for similarities. So after adding up all the columns, the table shows that the highest sales were in April and May. In both months, roughly 65,000 was earned in total. Okay, now, how can I continue on? What should I write after this? So I'm throwing it out there for you. Obviously, I'm looking for a contrast here. We've used the word conversely, so we want to use something else. Show your range of vocabulary. So what can I write here? Yeah, I'm going to be the lowest here, Farouk, for sure, but I want to make sure that I have some nice connection here. In contrast is okay. We used conversely already, Farouk, so I don't want to repeat that. On the contrary, Ayman, not in contrary, on the contrary. On the other hand of the spectrum, other end of the spectrum, yeah, it's okay, Alien Eater. It's a little bit awkward in this specific case. I would go with a however or on the other hand here, absolutely. On the other end, the 2 months which had the lowest sales were July and August. And what did we say? 11, 19, that's 40, 56, roughly. July and August at approximately $56,000. Sure. Okay, that looks good. And now, if you're very good at writing and you're super fast and you're like, hey, I've got lots of time, I just did that in 10 minutes and 15 minutes, I got a couple more minutes, and I'm sure I can do a quick summary as well for this. So I want to throw in a little bit about June. We can do that. So we can say June was somewhere in between at about, 58,000. June had sales just slightly higher than July and August at about 59,000, let's say. Okay, and don't forget those dollar signs. It's good to include that. Please don't waste time on writing the word dollars, okay, or thousand a whole bunch of times. Don't write specific numbers, so don't get into 2-1. Your goal here is to report the main features, okay? The question says that for you. It says, please report the main features and make comparisons where relevant. The graph is not looking for tiny little details. Now, obviously after this comes our summary. So in summary, what can I write about the summary on this? Can anybody who's using some good critical thinking of what, why, and how tell me what could be an excellent summary by looking at this question, hint, hint, and these figures? Okay. Anybody? Yep, so I can say to recapitulate or overall or in summary. What can I say? Yep, so there's definitely a downward trend. So there's a decrease in sales from month to month, going from April to August. Absolutely, that's a great way to start it off. Farouk, good for that one. So in summary, the table shows that sales do decrease from month to month, decrease from, if you're actually more clever here, you'll say the table shows that sales decrease from spring to summer months. Yeah. Okay, sure. Can I add a little bit in there? Can I add a little bit more in there in my summary? I'm looking for that clever student watching right now who's going to figure out what the relationship is between the data shown here and the question details that are shown there. Okay, there's definitely something there. And I haven't seen it come up yet. There's something in the question that we haven't really included anywhere in our essay yet. Aha, Kira very quickly typing, so quickly that maybe you just hammered it out there. But yeah, the school, right? The school. When do students go to school in many parts of the world? From September to June, right? Or the middle of June. So in the West anyway, I'm not sure about all other countries, but in the West, and I believe in most countries it's like this, school tends to go from the months of September to about the middle of June, and there's usually no school in July and August, right? So we can say something clever like this. It can be inferred from these numbers that the cafe sales are influenced by the operation times of the school and summer vacation. Okay, so you don't want to give something too affirmative. Whenever you're reporting about a graph or a table, you want to be very careful not to say, hey, it's because the students eat their lunches there, that's why they get so much money. So you want to be careful that you don't try to say something too creative which is not clear from the graph. But you can say it can be inferred. Does everybody know what the word inferred means? That's a very, very good vocabulary for task 1. Anybody know the meaning of inferred? I'll show the whole paragraph in a second, Mukul. No, inferred means to make an educated guess. Okay? Infer means to make an educated guess. I'll put that at the bottom here. Okay, so in university, you generally don't say guess, you say I infer because you're using data or you're using information. So infer means to make an educated guess based on details, okay? If the sky is all gray and dark and suddenly it's cool and I feel a strong wind, I can infer that it's going to what? It's not assume. Assume is weaker, Robert, so assume does not necessarily mean that it's educated. That's right, Nargiza, it's going to rain, right? So my inference is that it's going to rain. Assumption, careful, assumption is not an inference. Assumption is more of a guess than an inference, okay? All right, so let's have a look at our full answer here, and then we'll do a quick word count to make sure that we've reached the required number of words. So this table depicts the earnings of a cafe near a school for 5 months and 3 meals of the day as indicated by the columns and rows respectively. At first glance, it is clear that the highest sales are for lunch. And here, like I said, I'd want to correct that. So if I have enough time to review, I would make a correction here. Were for lunch in April at about $28,000. Conversely, the lowest sales were for breakfast. Same correction here, right? This is my time to correct when I'm reviewing. Conversely, the lowest sales were for breakfast in August at just under $11,000, less than half. By doing some simple addition, it becomes evident that the highest grossing meal for this cafe is lunch. After summing the row, the total sales are roughly $125,000. Going forward with this arithmetic, summing the other 2 rows reveals that dinner is the lowest revenue with about $70,000 earned. After adding up all the columns, the table shows that the highest sales were in April and May. In both months, roughly $65,000 was earned in total. On the other hand, the 2 months which had the lowest sales were July and August at approximately $56,000. June had sales just slightly higher than July and August at about $59,000. In summary, the table shows that the sales do decrease from spring to summer months. It can be inferred from these numbers that the cafe sales are influenced by the operation times of the school and summer vacation. All right, let's do a quick word count, see how we did. You guys want to take a guess? How many words? Not bad, Alien Eater. In fact, yeah, Raya, very close. That you would win the jelly bean jar at school. In fact, it was 204 words, okay? So the total here is 204 words. This would be a level 9 answer. Okay? Now, girls and guys, again, I want to show you something interesting here before we go to task 2. So as you know, task 1, you can see different kinds of diagrams, you can see maps, you can see bar charts, pie charts, line graphs, tables, flow charts, and you can see combination graphs. So sometimes you're looking at, for example, a bar chart mixed with a table, okay? Now, when you see a simple table like this, and all of task 1 is just a simple table, you definitely have to do more than just try to compare these numbers to each other for similarities and differences. So if you try to compare these, and then you try to compare these, and then you try to compare these, and then you contrast this one with this one, you can get an okay score. You can still get a 6, 6.5. You can still get an okay score. But definitely if you use a little bit more critical thinking, more analytic thinking, and you notice that, hey, whoa, wait a second, these are details. The big pieces of information are the months and the meals of the day. Okay, so you have to realize that this is not a joke here, and the months are not a joke here. They're not to be ignored. If you ignore the months and comparing the months, and you ignore comparing the meals of the day, it's virtually impossible to get over 7 on this task. Okay, you have to clearly realize that you need to make those bigger comparisons and not just looking at these digits. So you have to do that simple math. All right. So keep that in mind. So that's going to be my last tip for this specific exercise here for you. Okay, is with tables. Okay, remember what I said here? Tables are used to compare data to variables. Here the two variables are meals of the day and months, which are divided into its parts. They're divided into those 5 months and the 3 meals based on those rows and columns. You need to make comparisons and contrasts. Note, tables will often require you to do simple math and report approximate totals. Should say report, compare, contrast. Approximate totals, as in our example, right? So months versus other months and so on. All right, so girls and guys, that is task 1, part 1. Now, of course, when you join our course, you will see that there are example responses provided for you at the end of your book. So this is coming from our academic book. Obviously, our general IELTS book at gieltshelp.com focuses on letter writing and writing complaint letters or letters of appreciation or requests and so on. But our academic one has tables and diagrams and maps and graphs and such. So at the back of your book, where you have your answer key, you will also have sample answers for these questions, okay? Here, let's look at the sample answer from the book. It's a little bit different than my answer, I believe. We can have a look at that. So just so you see some alternative here. So the chart compares the sales at a cafe at breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the period of April to August 2010. The chart contains 6 columns and 4 rows. The highest sales period overall is lunch in April, though lunch in May is very close behind. The lowest period is for breakfast in August, which brought in only $10,880. This is less than half of the largest breakfast sales, $21,000 made in May. Breakfast sales show a consistent decline from April to August, and lunch sales follow a similar arc, though they show a small gain in August. Dinner sales are notably consistent, with a variation in sales of less than 1,000. Overall, May is the highest earning month, close to April, while July and August both show similarly poor sales. These sales numbers indicate that the cafe's business is heavily dependent on customers from the nearby high school. The cafe's best months are those that class is in session. The inconsistent sales of breakfast and lunch reinforce the relationship with school traffic. Okay? Notice, this is a fairly different answer than the one we gave, although the information is very similar. This is another band 9, just reported in a different way. Notice that in this one, the particular student only uses numbers a couple of times. They only report 2 numbers. We used a bit more of numbers, actually 3, sorry. We only used 2 numbers, but again here, the student is very efficient at making those major comparisons between the meals of the day and the months. All right? So that is an alternative. You will find that at the back of your book. All right. Again, this video will be up on our YouTube channel for a few days, and then it will go into the archives on the website with all of the other videos there. Cool. So everybody's got the right idea. Everybody has a good sense of how to write for a table now. Hi, Mohammed Yosef. Nice to see you join the class today. Hi, Gary Brar. Good to see you again back in class. All right, so now that we did that, let's jump to task 2. And for task 2, we're going to go nice and smooth. I'm not going to go into too many detailed explanations of how to do task 2. Instead, I want to just work through it at a nice, comfortable pace. Again, you can learn lots about strategy, structure, timing for how to write a good task 2. Join us at aehelp.com for the academic IELTS, gieltshelp.com for general IELTS, and you'll notice that task 2 is kind of the same regardless of which module you are taking. Just make sure you're taking the right one. General is for immigration mostly, and academic is for school mostly. It's a good question, Hike. If you make a mistake, like for example, when I changed the tense from are to were, if you make a mistake, you want to just keep it really simple. So don't get messy. So let's say I want to change this word willing to going. Just do a simple strike through like that, and then write the correct word above, like that. Okay? So that's all you do for your correction. Of course, if it's a bigger correction, you do a longer strike through and then you write it above. If you have to take out a whole sentence, please do it. Take it out. If you see that a sentence doesn't make sense, take it out and rewrite it above. So it's a good question, Hike, because that also tells you that you should be careful with your spacing. Don't write very tight. Yes, you can use a pencil. It's a good idea. And you can use your eraser. Just make sure that you have a good pencil and a good eraser. Sometimes students make a really big mess with their eraser, and it makes their writing illegible. If the writing's illegible, you lose marks. If I can't read what you're writing because it's so messy, then I'm not going to stress myself trying to figure out what you're trying to say. All right? Okay, so here we go, girls and guys. Question task 2. You should spend no more than, and let me just close software here because I don't need it anymore. Just give me a second. It'll give us a little bit more space. All right, so here we go. You should spend no more than 40 minutes on this task. Write about the following topic. In a public-funded healthcare system, people who are willing to pay for the best and fastest treatment should be able to do so. To what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement? Give reasons for your answer and include any relevant examples from your own knowledge or experience. You should write at least 250 words. So step number 1, I want to make sure that I understand the question. I can do that by paraphrasing. So if I want to paraphrase this question, I can say, in a tax-supported medical system. So again, you want to practice this at home. I usually give students a chance to paraphrase, but this time, again, I'm moving nice and smooth so I can show you that we can pretty much do this in 40 minutes, no problem, if we know what we're doing. So in a tax-supported medical system, people who want to pay for the best and fastest care should be allowed. Okay, so that's my paraphrase. To what extent? How much do I agree? Okay, good. So now I have a clarity of the question, or for the question, and now I can go on to my next step. My next step, of course, is identifying the topic. The topic is publicly funded healthcare system, and the controlling idea is people should be able to pay for better treatment. Should they be able to do it? Okay, here my clear answer is no when I go through all of my what, why, how. So what is a publicly funded healthcare system? Why does it exist? To help all people, to give equal treatment to people. How does it work? Everybody pays taxes. so that when we get injured or when we get sick, we can go to the hospital and get good help from the doctors. Should people be allowed to pay for the best? So what does that mean? It means, can I use money to get better help than other people? Why? Because I'm rich, I have money, I can do it. How? By giving money to the doctor, and then they give me priority and take me before other people, and I get the best doctor because I'm paying. So I go through that what, why, how very quickly, and now I can identify my thesis. Here I'll give you a little bit of a moment to figure out a thesis for this. Can somebody give me a thesis for this question? I'm looking for those clever students out there who are watching these classes using the website and know that once you've understood the question, the topic, the controlling idea, then you can come up with a powerful thesis. Can somebody come up with a powerful thesis for this question, for this argument? You should have your thesis even written down before you write your whole essay. So I'm not looking for the hook here, Hike. I'm looking for the thesis. What are the two key points? So what is my argument? Do I agree or disagree with the idea that people should be allowed to pay money to get better and faster treatment in a publicly funded healthcare system? What should be my thesis here? It should be an argument statement. Yep, I'm going to disagree. Absolutely, I think it's an easier argument to make, to strongly disagree, because it's a publicly funded healthcare system, Gary, not a privately funded healthcare system. Okay, Kira says, I strongly disagree with the statement because the healthcare system should be good and equal for everybody. Yes, why? Why? In my opinion, not all people are able to pay for better services, thus I disagree. Yeah, okay, so you guys are getting the right idea. Kira has the best thesis statement so far. I would say something like, I mostly disagree with the idea that people can pay for faster and better treatment in a public healthcare system because it creates, and then I need 2 points. Anybody know the opposite of equality? What is the opposite word for equality? Inequality. Okay, that's right, Kira. So it creates social inequality and conflict. Right. So that would be a very powerful thesis. And then social inequality could be my body paragraph number 1, and social conflict could be my body paragraph number 2. So now, if I'm able to create this very nice thesis, I can begin writing. So with my writing, the first thing I write, okay, of course, is the introductory paragraph. So in my intro, the first line is my hook. Now, I know some students will disagree and say, my teacher said you don't need a hook, and so many people say you don't need a hook in IELTS. Yes, you need a hook, because the hook makes you focused on what the topic actually is. It captures your reader and it allows you to be more fluent in your writing. So hooks are important. For those of you that don't know what a hook is an interesting global statement that captures your reader, and it should contain the topic of the essay. So the hook here is many countries around the world have publicly funded healthcare systems, and that's enough. Anybody know which countries have publicly funded healthcare systems? Anybody know a few examples of countries that have publicly funded healthcare systems? USA, kind of. USA is actually, interestingly, one of the countries that doesn't really have, well, it does, but it's interesting there. Canada definitely does. That's where I'm from. Canada is an absolutely publicly funded healthcare system. Turkey does. Russia does. Australia does. Austria does. Germany does. Many countries do. Most of Europe has it. And many Asian countries, I believe, have it as well now. So, yes, you're absolutely right, Brad. A bit of a typo there. And you definitely want to avoid mistakes in your hook, because it just looks bad. So make sure to review your hook at the end of the essay so that you don't have some kind of a silly mistake that I just did, which is miss the R. Okay, now after that comes the background. Okay, so what is the background to publicly funded healthcare systems? What is the idea? Why do we do it? Why do we have publicly funded healthcare systems? I'm sorry, I know, Gary, that India does not have it. It's really unfortunate. And I believe that a lot of the problems in India are because it does not have a publicly funded healthcare system. Yeah, so it's definitely a definition, Hadil, and an importance. So I want to give a definition and the importance of this topic, right? So arguably, health is the most valuable aspect of any human's life. Therefore, many people worry about having enough money to protect or save their health in case of trouble. People who are wealthy, or you can say the rich, often advocate for special treatment in exchange for large sums of money. Okay, so that's my background. It makes sense, it's good. And now I can just throw in my thesis, and this is why it's a good idea to formulate your thesis and have a good thesis even before you write your introduction. Because if you have a good thesis and you know it's good, all you have to do now is just copy your thesis. So that's a given sentence. It's going to be very smooth for you. And then you know right away the direction of the rest of your essay. So you can say, okay, no problem. Now I can just put that in here. And because I'm using a computer, I can do a little cheat here of a control copy. And then voila, you have your thesis, right? The third part of your introduction. Okay, I mostly disagree with the idea that people can pay for faster and better treatment in a public healthcare system because it creates social inequality and conflict. All right? So, first thing I need to do is now write my body paragraph based on the idea of social inequality. So I jump a line and I like to indent because it makes it very clear for the examiner that this is a new paragraph for me. Jatinder, how many words should be okay in task 2 for body paragraphs? Your body paragraphs should be roughly about 80 words, 80 to 100 words each, something like that. You should try to go for a little bit more than 250, okay? All right, so the first sentence, of course, for the body paragraph, I'm just going to tell you that it's a body paragraph here. This is just for education purpose. Do not write body in the actual IELTS. So the first one, do not write topic sentence. Just write the topic sentence. So you write a topic sentence. The topic sentence should be a deeper definition or explanation of social inequality. Can somebody give me a sentence? Safa, can you give me that topic sentence, what it is? Can one of you write it out for me and let me know what would be a good topic sentence to begin that first body paragraph about, and keep it in the same order, of course, as your thesis. So make sure the first one's social inequality and the other one's social conflict. So why does it create social inequality if somebody can pay for better and faster service? Okay, there's one sentence up. Kira says, social inequality results from some people receiving special services different from others. Yeah, Sassam says, some people do not have enough money for the medical care, so they will be treated differently. Okay? Yeah, and you can say it like this. Much of the public lacks the funds for expensive medical treatment, and this results in a great divide between the level of care that they may receive. Okay, good, sure. So much of the public lacks the funds for expensive medical treatment, and this results in a great divide between the level of care that they may receive. If you let people pay for faster and better treatment. If payment is involved in healthcare. Okay? All right. What comes after that? What comes after the topic? Yeah, Bella, that would be a good one too, keeping it more simple, but I think that's a very good topic sentence as well. Just make sure you don't use contractions, so don't say can't, actually say cannot. So most people cannot afford healthcare as much as the rich or the wealthy. That would be good too. Alienator says a supporting sentence. Yeah, and another way to say that is an explanation. Okay, we're not into the example yet. You want to give an explanation. Okay, so explain this. Explain this. So much of the public lacks the expenses, and this results in a great divide between the level of care that they may receive if payment is involved in healthcare. Explain that. Clearly, doctors and hospitals can give priority to paying customers when it is allowed, and they can reserve their best interventions for the highest bidder, right? So, hey, I got $1 million. I'll pay for that treatment. Don't give it to that guy. Oh, really? I have $5 million. I'll pay for that treatment. Don't give it to the guy that just said $1 million. So it creates a bidding contest. So clearly doctors and hospitals can give priority to paying customers when it is allowed, and they can reserve their best interventions for the highest bidder. Okay, now what can I say? Now I can say an example, right? So I go into an example. Can somebody give me a specific example for this? Okay, I'll look at some of the explanations first. Sorry, guys, I know I'm putting a lot of pressure on you here to move very quickly. So I'll slow it down a tad, and I'll look at some of those explanations. So SEM, people who can't afford healthcare are not able to live a healthy, normal life. Good, that's a good explanation as well. I might save some of that for the next body paragraph, talking about social conflict. This would mean that people who are rich are prioritized. Yeah, absolutely, Alien Eater. Guys, girls, don't jump tenses. So try to avoid the idea of will. I know for this topic and this question, it's easy to start using will, but it's not good writing. In good writing, you usually avoid jumping to the future tense. You keep it present so that your information is generally true, not just in the future. All right? But those are good, Sem and Alien Eater. I like them. Okay, so now an example. Hopefully, while I was explaining a little bit here, some of you already started writing your examples. So let's have them. What is an example of people and hospitals giving priority to paying customers? I can definitely think of a couple. Yeah, that was one of the first ones I thought of too, so good for you. For example, cardiac interventions and catheterization would be allowed for rich people as it costs a lot. Yeah, even keeping it more simple like a heart transplant. SAFA, for instance, countries that have the public support for medical systems, such as the USA, suffer from low-level service. For instance, countries that have private medical system, such as the USA, because USA is in a big way private. You have to pay for medical insurance. For instance, private dentists always give better treatments to their clients than the ones who are entitled to the public. Yeah, that's a good example too, Sarah. Ike says, for example, many refugees cannot pay for better treatment, but they are also human beings and deserve to be treated as such. You just need to finish that up. Sem, good. Chemotherapy may be denied to poor people as they are not able to afford it. Sure, so chemotherapy is a good example. A heart transplant is a good example. So as one case, a wealthy businessman may outbid the family, outbid a poor family for a heart transplant, which can result in the death of a young child who should have been treated first, or who should have had first priority. Okay, sure. So I gave a very brutal example, but that makes for effective writing. As one case, a wealthy businessman may outbid a poor family for a heart transplant, which can result in the death of a young child who should have had first priority. Okay, good. So here I can connect and conclude. That's my last part here. So connect, conclude. Sentence, of course, is not the conclusion. This is one of two reasons, and I've shown you this before. It's easy to do. So this is one of two reasons why I do not support financial incentive in a publicly funded medical care. And there you have that first paragraph. Okay, so first body paragraph. Here we go. Just a quick review of what we have so far. Make sure you're not getting lost. Yes, Alien Eater, C instead of an S. I realized that just after. Many countries around the world have publicly funded healthcare systems. Arguably, health is the most valuable aspect of any human's life. Therefore, many people worry about having enough money to protect or save their health in case of trouble. People who are wealthy, This is where I want to make sure that I do corrections if I've made mistakes. Often advocate for special treatment in exchange for large sums of money. I mostly disagree with the idea that people can pay for faster and better treatment in a public healthcare system because it creates social inequality and conflict. Much of the public lacks the funds for expensive medical treatment, and this results, I think the better word here is many of the public, no, and then let's keep it much. Much of the public lacks the funds for expensive medical treatment, and this results in a great divide between the level of care that they may receive if payment is involved in health care. Clearly, doctors and hospitals can give priority to paying customers when it is allowed, and they can reserve their best interventions for the highest bidder. As one case, a wealthy businessman may outbid a poor family for a heart transplant, which can result in the death of a young child who should have had first priority. This is one of two reasons why I do not support financial incentive in a publicly funded medical care. By the way, if you're trying to add a word, just like I did, so you want to add in the word of because you realize that you missed a participle or a preposition of sorts, then you can just do it like this in the actual exam, okay? Because you might not have enough space. So you do a little V like that where you're adding it, and then you do of, just like that, all right? So that's what you want to do. Now, let's have a look at an alternative response. Hopefully you're following along quite nicely there. And I want to show you an alternative response. Again, this is in the back of your book when you have our full course from aehelp.com. GIELTShelp.com will be very similar for general IELTS because task 2 is similar. So let's read this together. It is sometimes argued that if a person is able to afford it, they should be able to purchase better and faster medical treatment. I disagree with this opinion. I believe that in a publicly funded healthcare system, every person should have access to the best doctors and the best care, and that a person's wealth should not determine the quality of care they receive. If money determines the level of care a person receives, the result is greater division between classes. So kind of a similar idea for body 1 here. The wealthy class receives the best care, further separating them as the upper class. Meanwhile, the poor class receives inferior care, pushing them further as the lower class. This class division, which already exists, is less when all classes receive equal health care. Society needs to take care of all its citizens, and dividing healthcare into classes goes against this responsibility. Okay, so a little bit more abstract. Could be better with a specific example for sure, but some good writing. Okay, girls and guys, so the next step here is body paragraph 2. And body paragraph 2, as I've done before, I'm going to leave it for homework. So I challenge all of you to write the second body paragraph for this essay. Okay, you can go back and review this video. It will be available on the YouTube channel in about 30 minutes. And then you can review introduction and body paragraph 1. Finish body paragraph 2 and the conclusion. And you can send this to me by email to Adrian@aehelp.com, and I will happily review your writing, let you know what kind of a band score you would get, and maybe even give you a tip or two on how you could improve your writing. So go ahead, do that at home. Again, I want you to learn how to be a good fisherman, not just have a fish in your hand. That's my goal, and I hope that I was able to achieve some of that with you today. Anybody have any questions about task 2 before I say a goodbye? See some thank yous coming up. You're very, very welcome. It doesn't have to be capital, Alien Eater. Emails, the capitalization doesn't matter. You can write it all lowercase. You are very welcome, Pravinder Reddy. You're very welcome, Hike. All right, girls and guys, I don't see too many questions coming up, so that's fine. It means that most of you are clear on what was taught in today's class. So in that case, I wish you a wonderful rest of your day or evening, and I know some of you are staying up quite late in the eastern part of the world. So for those of you, I'm wishing you some sweet dreams, and I will see you tomorrow, same time, 4:30 p.m., 16:30 Central European Budapest time. Bye for now, and I look forward to receiving your writing. Bye-bye.